Okay, now we're going to talk about the clock principle. I want you to imagine that a clock from the wall, a big analog clock that has the hands telling the time, gets enlarged and spread out across the room. And I want you to imagine that the room that you're in is a perfect square. And that circle at 12 o'clock at the top and the sides and the very bottom touch that square. So it perfectly fits in this box, okay? When I'm standing in the middle of the room, I imagine that I'm standing where the hands of the clock meet in the center. So that center pivot point in the middle of the clock. And the hands shoot off from there, okay? And anytime I turn around, I'm in the center at all times, okay? So if I was to turn to my left, that's my 9 o'clock. If I was to turn around and do this with you in the room together, there's 12 in front of us. So if I walk forward, we're at 12. If I was to step back, on the clock behind 12 is 6. If I go to my right, it's always going to be 3 o'clock. If I go to my left, it's 9 o'clock. If I was to face you again, 9 o'clock is still on my left. It's always on my left if I'm facing 12, always, okay? Now, the importance of the clock principle, okay? As you train through the arts of Kempo, or a lot of martial arts, actually, the language is written as if we're telling an opponent or telling a practitioner to step back, we're not going to say just step back. We're going to say step back to 6 o'clock, okay? Rather than saying step back south or north or east and west, it gets way too confusing. So we just do what we've all learned all our lives, is to tell time. So even as a little kid, you're learning to tell time. I know today's world is mostly digital time, but when I grew up, when my kids grew up, we looked at the clock and learned the analog clock. So it's important to learn that because it coincides with the language of Kempo. We need to understand the clock principle to understand how to learn from the book, or have somebody teach you and say, all right, everybody drop back with your left foot towards 6 o'clock with the right inward block. You won't understand what to do if you don't understand those angles. So that is Kempo 101, the clock principle, okay? Now, we have a plus sign. If you look at a clock on the wall, like I'm looking at the clock that we have now, from 12 to 6 is a straight line. If I go side to side and think about like a slice of pizza, half of the pizza goes from 3 to 9. That separates the top half and the bottom half, okay? If I was to cut in 2 different directions, we'd have 4 slices of pizza, and that equals about 15 minutes on the clock each, okay? So that's the first 4 angles of attack. 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I've cut the pizza in half. If I go and turn towards 9 o'clock, there's 9 o'clock, and there's 3 o'clock. Now I've cut the pizza again in 4 pieces. Okay. Now we can take those slices and cut them even in smaller slices, right? That's when we start getting to the multiplication sign, or the X. So again, 12, 6, 3, and 9 is here. It's a plus sign. If I take that plus sign and turn it on its side, now we have a multiplication sign, or an X. And those would complete our 8 angles of attack. Because we have a 360-degree room, right? In space, we have 360 degrees. I can turn all the way around, and every single place is an angle. Now, if I was to write books or explain to class, all right, everybody, I want you to step with your right foot towards 132 or 348 on the clock, you guys would be out the door. That'd be way too confusing. So we have to simplify it and break it down to the 8 major categories, which is 12 and 6, 3 and 9. Then we get to our corners of the room. We have 10:30 at the left side. We have the right side facing 12, we have 1:30. Behind me to my right is always going to be 4:30. And behind me to my left is always going to be 7:30. So 7:30, 9, and 10:30 are always to my left if I start at 12. And to my right is always 1:30, 3 o'clock, and 4:30. If I was to switch this all the way around, face 12, we have 1:30 at the corner of the room, okay? On facing 12, we have 3 o'clock at the side line of the room. If I was to face 12 o'clock and step straight back, I have 6 o'clock. And in between, we have 4:30 at the angle, okay? If I was to go the other way, I have 7:30 at the corner of the room. If I look to my left, I go straight to 9. If I go up to the very corner of the room, I now have 10:30. Okay? So 12, 1:30, 3 o'clock, 4:30, 6 o'clock, 7:30, 9 o'clock, and 10:30, okay? So that's not too hard to learn the directions. There's only 8 of them, okay? We're all capable of learning that. I know it's kind of tricky for some of the little guys, but with some practice, you will get it. I've seen hundreds of students understand the clock principle. And some kids will learn how to tell time by utilizing the clock principle in Kempo because they're so young and they haven't learned it in school yet, but they start to pick up on it. So it's a great thing to have. And now comes the hard part, okay? Let's say that I'm in a left neutral bow facing you, and you're my 12 o'clock, okay? And I'll do this as I spin around too so you can practice this with me. If I'm facing you at 12 o'clock, are my feet facing you? Only if I was in a neutral forward bow. Only one foot though. If I was in an attention stance, then my feet would face you. If I was in a horse stance, technically they'd be facing forward but inverted a little bit, okay? But in a fighting stance where I'm fighting, they're not facing you. If I face you like this, then my groin is exposed, my belly's exposed, my solar plexus is exposed, my neck, my nose, my teeth, my forehead, everything's exposed. But if I turn to the side, it's there, but it's not nearly as targetable as it was if I was facing forward, okay? So I need to offset that to the side a little bit. Not only that, but my knees being bent in a neutral bow is gonna protect my groin, okay? If you kick me like this to my front leg, it doesn't bend this way. It's gonna hurt me really bad. But if you kick me to the side, my knee can roll into that kick very easy. Especially with like a roundhouse kick, it just bends and turns the right way. And my knee bends naturally that way. So it's so much safer. And we talk about our stance stability too, right? The pads of my feet are at an angle. So if you was to push me from the front, I have a pretty wide foot to stop me from going over to the sides. So I have a real stable base from here, okay? So again, if I'm facing you, if my eyes are going towards 12 o'clock, my toes go to that first slice of pizza all the way to 1:30, okay? So I'm facing a straight line, my toes are facing an angle. If I was to face 3 o'clock, or to the side of the room in a neutral bow, so I'm facing again on the plus sign line from 3 to 9, that's where my eyes are facing, but my toes cannot face that same direction. It's the same as when I was facing forward. They now face the corner of the room. So now they're facing my 4:30. So from 3 o'clock to 4:30, there you go. You have that little slice of pie again, or slice of pizza. If I was to face 6 o'clock, look where my toes go. They go out towards 7:30. My toes can't face 6 o'clock because I'm like a tightrope walker. I have no balance this way. I have no protection. So my toes have to be offset to the corner of the room when I face a straight line. If I was to face 9 o'clock, my left, my toes cannot face 9 o'clock. We've already gone through this, right? I can't have my toes facing the same direction or all my toes in a fighting stance facing my opponent. They have to be offset, okay? 12. That's pretty easy. It seems most people understand that. If I was to do my right side, face 12, now my toes face to my left, to the corner of the room. They face 10:30. Even if you don't understand the clock principle itself, which that's what we're working on, so you should definitely study that. But even if I didn't have names of these different directions, my toes do not face my opponent. They cannot face my opponent like this. Even if I'm about to kick, it doesn't make any sense because I am wide open. If my knee is bent and I'm about to kick, there's a moment, a very small window now that my groin is exposed compared to the entire time that my feet are facing forward. It doesn't work. So that's not too hard. But what's hard is when I start saying, okay, now rather than facing the plus sign, my opponent is coming from the corners. Now it's confusing because at the very beginning stages of Kempo, we don't work on those corners very often. So you don't get a lot of practice with this. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter where you face. It doesn't matter if I'm facing between 9 and 10 at 9:30. It doesn't matter where I face. My toes cannot face my opponent. That's the rule. If you can get that rule, then we can start labeling where they're supposed to be facing as we go through our 8 angles of attack. I can put numbers on them and understand this, okay? If I take the same theory and now face 10:30, which is to my left above 9, I cannot face in a neutral bow my toes towards my opponent. The rule cannot be broken depending on where I'm facing. It's everywhere I'm facing. I don't want a tightrope walk anywhere. Okay? So if I'm facing 10:30, I have to look at the end of that slice of pizza. My eyes are facing on the multiplication sign, so my feet cannot. They have to face on the plus sign. One slice of pizza away, always. Okay? If my left foot is forward, it goes to the right. The slice of pizza always goes to the right. If my right foot's forward, the slice of pizza will always go to the left. That means my toes are always going to the left of where I'm looking, if my right foot's forward. Okay? If I'm in a left neutral bow facing 10:30, my toes cannot face 10:30. They have to face at the end of the pizza slice, which is 12 o'clock. Always. So as I move back, my opponent, and we're fighting, my toes are always going off to 12. Always, always, always. If he changes a slight angle, then my feet would change a slight angle too. Does that make sense? If I'm facing 1:30, guess what? My toes cannot face 1:30. If we look at the clock, at the end of 1:30, one of those 8 slices of pizza is to 3, right? Because we have 8 slices around that clock. Because my left foot is forward, I'm in a left fighting stance, my slice of pizza goes to the right, which takes from the angle, 1:30, to the next straight line, which is now 3 o'clock, and that's where my toes face. So I'm in a fighting stance. If I was to face 4:30, what's the next slice of pizza going to the right from 4:30? 6 o'clock. So my eyes face 4:30, my toes face 6 o'clock. If I was to face 7:30, I cannot face 7:30. And I certainly cannot face my eyes into 7:30 and my feet go all the way up 2 slices of pizza over to 10:30. That puts me into a side horse. And while we'll utilize a side horse in some techniques, at the beginning stages, we're just gonna go in a neutral bow, okay? My toes face 1 slice of pizza over to the right, which is 9 o'clock, 7:30, 1 slice, and now I'm at 9. I go to 9, my feet are 10:30. If I go to 10:30, my feet go to 12, and so on all the way around that clock. If I was to switch my stance with my right foot forward, all the same rules apply, except for now my slice of pizza goes to the left. It's always the opposite of my foot that's forward. I know that can be confusing, but one of the best things to do is be a neutral bow, and I've done this with the kids before. We'll just drill back and forward, okay? So I shuffle back, shuffle forward. And now I shuffle into my opponent at 1:30, shuffle back. Look at my feet, they're facing 3. And then I'll shuffle into 3 o'clock, shuffle back. Now my feet are facing 4:30. I'll shuffle to 4:30 and back. My feet are facing 6. I'll go back to 6 and into 6. My toes are facing 7:30, and do that all the way around the clock. And you'll see that your toes are always a slice of pizza or just a small little triangle away from your eyes. They have to be. Not 2 slices of pizza, because 2 slices puts you into a side horse, which essentially gives your opponent your back. And it's also very hard to kick. If I was facing 9 o'clock with a fighter and I want to use my right foot to kick, the only way to do that is to walk around myself to kick. So a side horse isn't the greatest place to be. So we don't want to go 2 slices of pizza up the clock, okay? So remember, when we have the clock on the floor, 12 o'clock, I'll do this facing away, we have 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock is always to my left, and 3 o'clock is always going to be to my right. If I was to slice this room up into 4 big chunks of pizza, 12 to 3 is 1, 3 to 6 is another, 6 to 9 is a big slice, and we have 9 o'clock all the way to 12 o'clock is a slice. But if we got more hungry friends over, we have 8 friends, we have to take each one of those slices and slice it again. And that ends us with our X, our 8 angles of attack. So if I'm facing 12, one of the 8 slices is 12 o'clock to 1:30. The next little slice is from 1:30 to 3. Remember, these are smaller slices now. We have 3 o'clock all the way to 4:30. And now the 4th slice right here is from 4:30 to 6. Now we're gonna go the other half, 6 o'clock all the way to 7:30. The next slice is 7:30 to 9. And then we have 9 to 10:30, and that 7 slices, the 8th slice is from 10:30 to 12. And that's your 8 angles of attack, okay? Hopefully that helps out with the little kids about how we use the clock principle. If you have any questions, any concerns, please talk to me about it. Thanks guys, have a good one.